Why can't I keep a straight face around you? We're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet So Hail, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today, we are focused on the epic Star Trek Prodigy two-parter, Ascension. Should I say Ascension Part 1 and 2 because I said two-parter, or just it was okay to just say like Ascension, right?
I think you got the message across.
How's it
People
going,
know.
Toddy? Nice to see you. Thanks for bearing with me and I bearing with you, audience, and audience bearing with us as we had our schedules were not quite mixing properly, I guess, for a couple weeks, but we're here. It's a Saturday morning, which is appropriate. Saturday morning cartoons. I did wake up early and watched both episodes back to back, so I've got them fresh in my mind, Toddy.
I don't have them as fresh, but I saw them and I was hype. I love them.
Yes, it was very good. I saw that you were hyped on Twitter. X, by the way, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, is total trash. Not only is the For You timeline trash, but now my friend's timeline is also trash, and I can't escape Elon Musk. I can't escape Donald Trump. They're showing dystopian images of robots that he's created and like all kinds of things. I don't know. It's very, very scary stuff.
So for anyone that still wants to use X or Twitter, never go to the For You tab because it's not
trash.
It's a lie.
It's not for you. It's a lie. It's true.
Stay on your following tab, and you might get mostly people that you are following. If you go to the For You tab, you will not get things that are for you. You will get things that have been curated by Elon himself, so that you can watch his trash. So yeah, that's it.
Also, don't write in Teslas because they're trash too. Okay, maybe they're not trash, but they're like semi-trash.
Teslas don't have a very good reputation up out here because apparently they're not very durable in like the tough like kind of winter weather. Yeah, so they rust and they fall apart and everything. So I wouldn't know. I don't have one. I just know that you need durable vehicles up in the snow when the winter hits.
It's true. But anyways, let's stop.
Happy Spocktober.
It's Spocktober.
It's Spocktober.
Yay. Look at that cool shirt.
Happy Spocktober.
DM Toddy if you like that shirt. And you want one.
Well, this specific shirt, I'll send this one.
Yeah. The one you're wearing. Oh, that's like a thing that it's too early for this. We can't talk about it. That's like a thing on eBay that some handsome people do and pretty people, handsome and pretty people do. Anyways, oh, it's true. The reason I say Teslas are trash because during the hurricane, a lot of them exploded, and then the batteries don't you can't put them out easily. They keep burning, so you have to basically bury them. I think one day we'll have electronic cars that are safer. I think overall, also just to be fair, most electronic cars have a pretty decent safety record. So I'm not trying to hate on electric cars. I think actually that is the way to go. But anyways, back to Star Trek Prodigy Ascension Part 1 and 2. So you were super hype about it when you saw it because it is a pretty exciting episode. I have to admit, watching it now, I was like the same. I got caught up in all the kind of excitement of it. Just a quick, brief episode summary. Try to keep me brief. Try to keep me brief here. So the crew, are all reunited, and Chakotay is back, and Janeway wants to return the protostar. She has a plan to return the protostar to Tars Lamora to close the time loop or time, to close the time issue.
Right?
Damn. That's the what happened?
No, you. You couldn't get your sentence out.
I couldn't. Stop distracting me. Anyways, no, just kidding. So they want to do this, but when they contact Jellicoe, he's like, "Yo, Catherine, sorry, we're gonna take it from here." And she's kind of upset about it, and she's like, kind of, she asked her crew, if it what should we do? And they're all they're all in agreement that we shouldn't like be rogues anymore, which she seems very disappointed, which she's like, oh, okay, fine. So they decide to pack it in. And everyone's kind of disappointed, but Dal kind of makes some good points about it, and he's like, trust Starfleet, that kind of thing, and and they all kind of agree. But then, just as that's happening, all of a sudden, this gigantic ship appears out of nowhere and starts attacking them. And it's one of it's Ascencia, of course. It was Ascencia all along, who's behind it all. She
It was
reveals
Seska.
herself.
Oh no, sorry.
She's kind of like a Seska, right? Like Ascencia.
I've always felt kind of Seska vibes from Ascension.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Before that, they get a message from Ilthron telling them that shit's bad on Solum.
From
And he's
Elrond.
basically
Oh no, sorry.
No, Iltheron. I'm gonna say it like Ledra. It's Iltheron. Trek on the tube. Art Lamaro. Sorry.
So they fly off to Celebrimbor.
They fly off to kill. We're mixing our shows. I'm so excited, by the way, to do Second Breakfast with you, but that's neither here nor there. So anyways, they get a message from Iltheron, who's like, yo, it's really bad here. Can you guys help us? And that's when the whatever it's called, the Ravager or whatever, appears. And immediately Ascensia starts to attack the Voyager, and it's like an energy drain weapon, basically. So as the energy is draining from the shields, they're trying to hold this thing off. They're like deciding what to do. So Chakotay decides that the best thing to do is to launch the protostar to try to stop the weapon. And Nova Squad also gets into gear. And I thought that was a cool moment where Dal separates from them to get.
That's it. Nova Squad and Dal.
And Dal, yeah. Yeah, it was a cool
He's
moment.
Not exactly Nova Squad, but
yeah, exactly. So and Dal, wackadoo, wackadoodle Dal.
He gets recruited.
He gets recruited. Chakotay kind of like urges him on to do that. So they go out there and they're like trying to, basically stop the threat, but it all culminates in this like big sequence where they launch the quantum torpedoes, and then the ship responds with this like crazy energy net thing that kind of obliterates that. Voyager's down to no shields, and they're basically in Ascencia's hands. And we find out that she has Wesley, and he's trapped in like a kind of bondage collar, like a okay, it's a techno bondage collar. And so she's using him to glean information about the future, and also to advance the technology. He's basically what it basically is actually is a paradox machine of some kind. You don't watch Doctor Who, but one time the Master turned the TARDIS into a paradox machine. So
what a bastard!
I know.
I mean, come on. It sounds like a terrible thing to do, honestly.
It does indeed. But anyways, so that's the end of part 1. And in part 2, basically it starts out with all these drones attacking the Voyager. We see the poor Bolian baby is about, and her and its mother are about to get destroyed. But then Chakotay defies Janeway's orders, and the protostar comes in and swoops in and saves the day. And I love that part where she's like, I'm glad you defied my orders for once. And he's like, for once? It's like the only time she's glad that he defied her orders was now, like after their whole relationship. I loved it. Anyways, then Ascensia kind of, we see how she's like gaining information from Crusher, and he's cleverly feeding her what she wants to see. So that's when she decides to launch this crazy ass weapon called the Incursor at the Voyager. And this thing basically
she would have got along well with Nero.
Yeah, she if they had met, he would have found a new wife, and he wouldn't have been pissed all that time about his family. and the whole Kelvin timeline would have been totally different. Maybe
no, they would have like pissed each other off even more, and they would have like ruminated over it, and they would have gone to war.
They would have fought each other, I guess. It's true. Also, anyways, yeah, I do see them together though. That's anyways, Tysus this thing, breaches the hull of the Voyager and no one's sure what it does, but then Tysus is like, run, and then it like emits this field basically that a temporal field that starts to age things, so that the Voyager's going to rust apart and then blow up, as we saw in the vision. And I love Tysus says, "Great Uzafat," but he gets caught in the field for a little while and gets old. I also like that they can easily cure that. That's kind of weird. It's kind of cool, also. But
we've seen it multiple times, though, like in TNG and stuff. We've seen like this kind of stuff happen, like aging. So
yeah, it's true.
It's just standard now.
I know.
It's like actually, the common cold, you get the common aging.
The common.
We've seen it in Lower Decks too.
But what's dangerous about it is that you caught in this thing too long, you age and die. Basically, your body will wither and die.
Well, that's what happens when you age.
Yeah, and which we'll see.
That's the final. The final age is death.
Yes, but it's also an awfully big adventure. But anyway, so anyways, this they are able to contain it for the time being, and that's when they're trying to figure out what to do. In the meantime, we also find out from Jellicoe that there's no help on the way because the fleet's stretched too thin. As we know, Toddy, the Romulan crisis is occurring simultaneously, the supernova evacuation crisis and all that stuff.
Shout out to that actually making sense for once, because usually in Star Trek there's a meme where like, yeah, the only ship in the sector. It's like, why? But here it kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? The fleet stretched too thin. They don't got a lot of fleet. They got a lot to do with the few ships that they have. So I mean,
with little time to spare, with few options, Zero bravely volunteers himself to do this, and we get this kind of very touching but also very like I thought very like horrific scene. Like, especially if I were a kid, I wouldn't want to see my Zero go through all this pain and like all that stuff, but it was great. It was very Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, Spock's sacrifice. It evoked that for me. I don't know if it evoked that for you, but in the meantime, Jankum starts working furiously on a replacement body so that he can save his buddy, or at least give his buddy's non-corporeal form somewhere to detach to, which I have some questions later on about. Do non-corporeals, how do they get affected by the beam? Do they age? Do non-corporeals die? I don't know. It's like an interesting thing. So
we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that if we remember. Anyways, in the meantime,
I'll write it down.
In the meantime, they come up with this plan, the Nova Squad, to lure the weapon away by having it fix on our friend Zero's girlfriend, whose name I'm blanking on because I'm an old person.
Majel,
thank you. Thank you. Majel comes up with this brilliant plan, and they decide to do the supernova, the Boothby supernova, which they hadn't attempted. It's the first time they're going to do it, because they're not going to be expecting it on the other ship. So they do that, and it's successful. The weapon detaches from Voyager, follows her, and slams into the Ascencia ship. And I forgot to mention that the cool robots on the ship. What's his name? The robot they all have. They all have a robot like that.
Oh, guy. The evil thing.
The evil thing.
Yeah.
Well, he's on there.
Sometimes they're not evil. It depends on, like, I guess who the.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. But anyways, I can't remember his name. I'm so bad this morning. I had coffee and everything. I don't know what's going on with me. But anyways,
it's like dogs, right? They are who you train them to be, or they are how their owners are, right?
That's a good way of putting it. Like a pet. Yeah, it's true. Although cats don't care what you train them to do.
Cats are just terrible all the time.
No, they're great. They just don't care. Anyways, so it works. It slams into the ship, and for the time being, they're safe. We get everyone reuniting and happy to be alive. We get Zero's new body. Magel says it's perfect, and this time it is actually a really cool looking version of the Zero suit, or the the Zero body. And this time he has tactile responses, and he can gather inputs and sensations and stuff like that. So it's a whole new world for him. Janeway gives a fabulous speech. Our mission isn't over yet. They got permission to go to Solum to handle the situation if they can. She talks about stuff with Chakotay, who I love all this Chakotay Janeway stuff. I think it's fantastic. One of the best things the show does. And then he basically says nothing stays the same forever. And yeah, did I do a good job? I only did it in like 10 minutes,
good.
right? Like,
That's
yeah, it was
good.
I didn't even write it down. I tried really hard. So, take over for a second and get us started with the discussion. I'm being summoned for a second, so be right back.
He's being summoned. Oh my goodness. I've already forgotten what it is that we shouldn't forget about, that we need to talk about. But hey, I wanted to say that I had mad Tholian vibes in this episode. Maybe it's just me, but the moment Incursor looks like Leviathan from Hellraiser 2, asked if Aaron Waltke, that was on purpose, not on the right spot.
What was that? Okay. What was the question? Oh, I asked Aaron Watke if that was on purpose, but he said not on the writer's part.
So maybe some visual inspiration there. I got mad Tholian vibes when the ship rolled up, and like the fact that they had like this energy grid type thing, and that it involves kind of like, I guess, time related stuff. It got me thinking about how like the Tholians, they got the Tholian web, and they were also dragging ships, like in Enterprise and in TOS, they were like dragging ships from like the past into the future, or the future into the past. You know what I mean? So I thought maybe she was in some way, in leagues with the Tholians, but apparently not. She's just using our boy Wesley's power.
Yeah. What did you think overall about this episode? Like, just how does it compare to other epic kind of battles that we've seen in Star Trek?
So, okay, I think this is good in comparison to some of the more recent Star Trek battles that we've had. So I'm very much more so a fan of this episode than I was a fan of like stuff in Discovery or Picard, which are the more recent shows. I do think that shows will forever have a lot of difficulty to compare to like the battles in Deep Space Nine. I think that's kind of like the holy
to this
grail
day. Isn't that wild? That
I think so.
Day, that it's crazy.
My little Prodigy.
But I don't think you can compare this to that battle. It's not like on that scale.
No, it's not on that scale. This is different. This is very much more so one of those, like, we have a main ship and we've got a lot of little drones like hovering around, which is kind of like a trend in I guess modern media. It's not so much what I appreciate in Star Trek battles, like the grandeur and the scope and the scale of like what Deep Space Nine delivered is just something on a whole other level. You know what I mean? Like, if it was HD, you know what I mean? But okay.
That's kind of like what people were hoping for. Like, that's why I think the big fleet thing failed in Picard season 1. It did a little bit better in Picard season 2, but it also, you know what I mean? Like, I think those are, like,
even like to bring it right back to like Discovery season 1, when they were like, they made a big deal about how like the whole Klingon fleet is on its way, and it's gonna be a big battle, and it's like, and then you get like 5-6 ships on screen, and it's like, oh, this is the whole fleet. It's not the whole fleet. So clearly you guys would just, it was someone was exaggerating. The canon is someone exaggerated when they spoke. You know what I mean? So you would expect something of like the scale of like what Deep Space Nine has delivered. But yeah, I do think that outside of movies, which are their own kind of separate entity, I think that TV shows will have difficulty of like one-upping, or at least like getting to the level of the epicness of the Deep Space Nine battles.
Right.
So on that scale, I think it's like, it's better than what we've seen recently, but it's not as good as like The Greatest, which, I mean, come on, it's very difficult to be as good as The Greatest. But then in terms of just like, I guess, memorable like the memorability, is that a word?
Yeah, memorability of battles. Yeah, I would say that's
of the episodes in general. I think
okay,
it is not so much the battle that I remember of this episode. It is very much the moments,
which is
of
right.
like,
Is how it should be. Like, you shouldn't. I mean, the battle's cool, but
it's the fact that Dahl gets to, pilot that ship and be with Nova Squad. It's the fact that Zero gets their, they do their sacrifice and they get their new kind of suit. I wouldn't call it the new body, but I'd call it the new suit, and I would call it like it's their final form.
I don't think it's going to be Zero's final form.
Maybe not, but it's the form that I feel suits them the best. I'm gonna be we can talk about this. So anyway, so that's my thoughts on the episodes. So here's what I think about Zero. I love Zero, and I love that Zero wants a physical form. But I do feel like giving Zero an actual body takes away from who they are. Because they are, at the end of the day, they choose who they are. It's not me that chooses, right? I guess that's the whole, point. But I do feel like they are how do they call it?
Non-corporeal.
And so giving them a body kind of, it takes away from the non-corporeal that they are. Whereas giving them a suit, you know what I mean, that can like house their non-corporeal being, but give them all of the experiences that they want to experience in that corporeal form, I think is the great kind of like middle ground. It's the great balance of it all.
I guess it's the most practical thing, but at the same time, I feel like the essence of what happens to Zero throughout this season so far, from his, his whole arc in general being like non-corporeal, hanging out with his fellow Medusans, getting captured, being put, having to create a suit for practical reasons so that he could relate to corporeals, then realizing that that Zero feels like he's missing out on a lot of experiences because of that, the limited nature of the suit that he creates for himself, then becoming corporeal, realizing how different it is, and how, like, it's something he was desiring. He wanted to connect more with all of his friends are corporeal, right? So like, here's this character, or here's this being who's non-corporeal, living amongst corporeals. It's only natural that they're going to want to experience that. Like in the opening of the season, he watches that couple holding hands, longing to do the same with someone, to just feel that. And he gets the chance to do that with they get the chance to do that with the body that's given to them on that planet. But I think it's a great way of showing that it's okay to experiment and like find yourself through trial and error. In other words, like that it's that not all of us are born knowing how we want to be or how we want to express ourselves. And a lot of us have to kind of find that through experimentation, through trying different things, and so on and so forth. So I think Zero is a really neat character because they represent that, I think, more than anything else. Because the other characters don't really have a choice per se, although I believe by the time Star Trek Prodigy is set, like, if you don't feel like your gender is correct, you can correct it easily without any of the issues we face today, or limitations we face today. And there wouldn't be an issue of like, are you a male? Are you a female? Are you whatever fourth gender Andorians have, like it would be perfect. In other words, the transition would not be in any way discernible from, like from actual,
absolutely,
someone born.
I think that the discourse that like we experience no longer exists, but I do think they have like another discourse which is more about like augments and that kind of stuff. So it would be, to what degree are you in a sense augmenting or changing your body? You know what I mean? So I think it's more centered around that discussion, which is something that we don't have yet.
Right. But we're in kind of like the as Dr. McCoy would put it, the dark ages of this.
We're in the dark ages. Got needles and shit. Come on, what the hell? No hypospray. It's dreadful.
It's true. It's true. I mean, look. I would love to have hair. I'm not one of those people who just accepts. I like the way I look bald, but Captain Picard, he chose to be bald. But I believe 100% in the future you could have hair if your genes don't allow. You could just.
So here's my question. Would you like to have hair, or would you like to have the option to have hair if you wanted so?
Well, that's what I have with wigs.
No, yeah, well, fair enough. Fair enough. But
no, it would be nice to walk
what you're talking about is like
outside and feel the breeze through my actual hair and the
nerve endings. Because that's what we're talking about Picard. Like you say, Picard chose to be bald, but if he wanted to choose to have the hair grow back,
he could. I'm sure he could. And there's no doubt. I mean, I don't think that's been explicitly addressed in canon, but if they have other technology to anti-age you, as you say, they can just like do everything else for sure.
But it puts things in perspective with like Geordi's eyes. You know what I mean? So maybe there are certain things that are like it's too intricate to really like completely rebuild. Well, they could connect new eyes to him, I guess, right?
I forget the reason Geordi has. There was something specific about why he didn't.
Okay, so you think it really is like case to case, like some people.
It might be.
You can fix, some people you can't in terms of like the medical procedures that we've got going on.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. That's an interesting question. I can't remember if they address it in TNG or not. But with Geordi's case, like eventually he has the robo eyes, that he has like later on and so on and so forth. By the way,
like other characters wear visors too. Have we seen other people with visors in like Lower Decks and stuff?
Yeah, I think some people
it becomes like
whatever the technology is doesn't work with. Yeah, that's funny that you said that. I've noticed that on Lower Decks too. People, but I think it's good that you have a spectrum of, you know what I mean? Like maybe not everyone. In some ways, Geordi's visor gives him a superior vision to what we have in a lot of ways, actually. So, even though it's an interesting question, but what I would say on the whole, at least today, did you know that we've successfully done eye transplants? One eye.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, humans have done something that they thought was impossible because of the intricacies of the optic nerve and so on and so forth. But there's no vision. The eye has taken root and the body has accepted the eye. However, the eye has
blind.
Not. It's blind.
Okay.
So that's the. But
so
that's
it's a visual. It's an appearance, an aesthetic transplant, basically.
Well, the eye may start providing vision because it's so unknown. Like now that the optic nerve.
When did this happen? Was this like yesterday that you're telling me?
No, it's like it's like I can't remember. Maybe it was like months ago or a year ago or something like that. I read about it.
I mean, I think it's.
But it's possible by now. I haven't.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I haven't seen the updates, but it's possible that their hope was that, as the eye settles or whatever, that the optics would start working in that way and connect to the brain. So yeah, so that's where we're at right now. So, but again, it's so like what you said, I think it is kind of case by case. Like not every person will, be able to do this. So it is interesting that in Star Trek, not all things have been conquered or defeated, not all ailments or so on and so forth.
I also like the idea. I think it expands the law so much to think that so we've seen other people than Geordi wear that visor. So I like to think not that like Geordi popularized it, but that it was already just a very common thing beforehand. Or common in a sense that, you know what I mean? It's like maybe it's common enough. Like not everyone knows how to work the technology behind the visor, etc. But it is like the schematics are in the database. And if you encounter someone that has the visor, then you can handle it. And I like to think that like it wasn't just a him thing. It was like
one of the retcons I like about Discovery is that you see a primitive visor or like an early designed visor on Discovery.
Really?
One of the transporter techs is wearing it, and then I think you see it again later on. Yeah, in earlier seasons of Disco. So yeah, very nice.
Very nice.
Toddy, so what was the thing you were going to talk? I don't remember now what you're going to talk about. That was a good.
I
That
don't.
was a good.
I don't.
That was
I
a really
told you
good
we
side
wouldn't remember. It was that thing
I
that
asked
we
you what
wanted
your
to
overall
say.
impressions are. So yeah, so we talked about the battle already. I thought Art said something earlier about how when I was doing the episode summary, he felt like he missed all that. I have to say, I missed a lot of stuff. It's very densely packed. Like the show is super densely packed. I feel like you almost have to watch it twice. Like the first time you're getting over the hype and the excitement, and like, oh my gosh, look, and then the second time you watch it, that's when you really, I think, catch a lot of the details and stuff. So Art, don't feel bad about that. So which character kind of stood out to you in these two-parters? Was it Zero or?
Yeah, I think it was Zero. I think Zero really stood out. I think Doll stood out as well. As having some like good moments, you know what I mean? Some good kind of like I guess connectivity with like the other flyers. It's a strange episode, and I say this with the most love possible. These are not specifically the type of episodes that appeal to me the most. When it's like big battle, a lot of action, that's why I think that the more character-based, like the more simple moments in the episode really stand out to me, and that's what bring me, like, you know what I mean, like the moments when like you quoted Janeway talking to Chakotay, that kind of stuff. Those are the things that stand out the most to me. When we get like the call, like the distress call from Gwyn's father, right? Or Gwyn's creator, or Gwyn's nothing, because he's nothing at that point to her. They're just connected.
I think it's okay to call him her father.
Anyway, so when we get the call and he's like in distress, like that connects to me much more than the actual like big battle itself, or like the fact that Chakotay is like, "Come on, crew," and he grabs our kids basically, and he's like, "You guys are the crew of the star, right?"
Yeah, it's true. Oh, by the way, so now we're seeing. Oh, sorry. Finish your thought.
That's what speaks the most to me about these episodes.
Two questions came to mind. How do you feel about Chakotay? Now he's back in. This is like we saw him finally back in action. Like he's not like he's over his 10 years stranded. He's like fully number one here. He's taking command. He's doing things. Like, what do you think of the character compared to Voyager Chakotay?
I like him. I think he's more, I don't know, brazen, like bold than he was in Voyager. Because I think that in Voyager he was kind of like he was more a follower than a leader. Dare I say? That's maybe how I felt about it.
Well, I feel like Jane. It's hard to stand up to Janeway.
Yeah,
it took all that. It took all that experience.
Take control when Janeway is.
But it took all that experience for Chakotay to finally like be comfortable enough to like.
No, but I always felt like Chakotay hasn't had a hard time speaking his mind to Janeway and telling her like, this is this and this is that, and I feel like we should be doing this, or this is a wrong move, or I don't know what the hell you're doing. Like he's doing that. Has he gone against her like publicly or really like defied her orders? I don't think that's not a thing that I remember Chakotay doing. I remember Chakotay kind of like being pretty
supportive.
Yeah, supportive of like her decisions, and yeah, and kind of So I've always felt kind of the same way with Chakotay and with Riker. Riker, I've always felt like he was 2 steps behind. Like he kind of never really knew what was going on until it was very well explained to him, and that's why we had like exposition dumps of Data going through every plot line or every plot point to Riker. So it's a way of entertaining or explaining it to the audience too. But I felt like, Chakotay was in a similar situation where it's like he's aware of what's going on, but he's just following Janeway's. But here, he feels like he's braver in a sense. He can take charge a bit more.
It's true.
He's had experiences now where he's more confident.
I also like how the show handles Jellicoe. I think there's a real potential for him to be a badmiral because Jellicoe, you
He's
either
on that
love him or
line. You know what I
he's on
mean?
that he's on the line. But I really like how they handle him. He's like, he did it's kind of, I don't know, he's still, do you think he's still the Jellicoe from TNG? How do you feel about his character overall? Like, what do you think of him
I
in
think he's
Prodigy?
he's a cranky old man, basically. And he's always been a cranky old man. But I think he's not a bad moral because he has good intentions. He has, you know what I mean? He has his own kind of like way of doing things. And he's got his, I guess, maybe old ways of doing things, or when he tries to implement something, he wants it like implemented now and it's got to be done, and you know what I mean, because this is what we're trying and we got to follow through. But I don't think there's any like ill intentions, and I don't think he's a corruptible person. Like, I don't think he's someone that you could bribe or corrupt into being like a bad moral.
Right. I think he's definitely Starfleet to the core, as Jean-Luc would say. Sorry, I stubbed my toe. I ran over my toe.
He's maybe
with my
he
chair.
ran over his own toe. Maybe he's kind of like, kind of like Shaw.
Yeah.
But less dickish. You know what I
No,
mean?
I think they're both equally dickish.
But in
Like
different
earlier in the season when he's like, Catherine.
in different ways,
In
I
different
guess.
ways.
Yeah.
I always wondered if Shaw and Jellicoe served together, because I would have loved to have had like that kind of like a connection with the two.
So Gordon Ramsay?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's dickish, right? We could say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay. But he trained with Marco Pierre White, which is a whole different type of dickish. You know what I mean? And so that's how I feel Shaw would have been like training under Jellicoe. That's, you know what I mean?
I like it. Hopefully we'll get more Star Trek follow-ups on Picard, so we could get that relationship. Maybe in Prodigy season 3 we'll meet a young Shaw. Who knows? A younger Shaw,
We
like
need a
a
Star
younger
Trek
version of Shaw.
cooking show, like a MasterChef type shit, but it's like Star Trek based, and so it's like all these aliens that do like dishes from their own worlds and stuff.
One of our audience regulars makes
And like
plomeat
Neelix is
soup.
one of the judges. You know what I mean? You got
And
like Neelix.
Hasprat. I think they
He's
made
a very
Hasprat.
nice. Neelix is a very nice judge, but then you get like someone like Tuvok that isn't. You know what I mean?
You get Neelix, Tuvok, and then you throw in who I think a good admiral for the part would be Admiral Nechayev. I think she needs to come back, and she would be a really good admiral. Cake is Eternal says, which is really funny, that Sean, you should do a Star Trek baking channel. It's true.
Yeah.
You should. You've baked for Rock Talk could judge too. It's true.
Rock, yeah.
Toddy's baked for the
Don't
Mandalorian.
let Jankum be a judge, because it's all good. It's all great. I love it. 10 out of 10.
I don't know. Is it Telluride? He might argue about ingredients and stuff like that. Oh, my cat's got the zoomies. I'm really worried.
Can you imagine the zoomies?
Yeah, he's running around like a crazy person right now.
Can you imagine like a tag team kind of like Telluride cooking cook-off thing, where like all of these Tellurites just fighting and arguing, making that soup?
Rock only eats goop. Did Rock stop eating the goop? I don't remember if Rock stopped eating the goop. You talked about Dal earlier. Yeah, I really agree with you that he's really come along a long way. I think he's a character who, what I've noticed from these discussions, like folks either love him or dislike him or don't know, or discount him or whatever. But I think he's really a character. I like Dal. I think he's I love that it's like the relationship between Dal and Gwen is so connected. You know what I mean? Like her growth and his growth are interconnected, and they help each other kind of come to a balance, if you will, from their views. It's more evident in season 1 because Gwen's like 100%, indoctrinated into the diviner's cause, and it's Dal it's Dal who kind of breaks her out of that. And then in season 2, Dal thinks that commanding is the only option for him, like that he has to be a captain and that's like his role. But like he discovers that maybe others can lead, and maybe leadership isn't so how do you say constant, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you lead in situations where that you can bring the team through, and you let others lead where they can bring the team through. And I think we see that development.
I think it's very important as a leader to assess and understand kind of like everyone's qualities and fields of expertise. And so as a leader, it is your role to sometimes not lead and to be led by the people that have like the greatest knowledge or the greatest understanding of whatever it is that you're trying to handle or tackle in that moment. And I think that's what makes the best captains too. You know what I mean? And to relinquish control too. Like, we've seen Janeway do it so many times where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to give the ship to Seven and the doctor, whatever, because, as a human, I have to go to sleep, whatever, you know what I mean? There's like situations. Or we've seen Picard give like control to Data as well. We trust you with this mission. You're going to keep the information. No clues, Data. No clues this time. So yeah, I think it's important.
One of our regular things that we like to talk about is how Data is the most dangerous weapon in Starfleet.
I still believe it, but I do respect the leadership in and I respect the trust that he has. You know what I mean? Because it's inevitable in the universe. Some people will be stronger than others. Some people will have more power, be that physical power or like even just mental capacity. But at the end of the day, you need to trust those individuals with the power that they hold. And if you don't trust them, then what's the point? I guess what's the point of having them around if you don't trust them enough?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I wrote this down.
I still don't trust Data.
I wrote this down because
I know the irony. I'm sorry. I think I trust Data more now that he's like Data 2.0.
Why?
I feel like
I trust him implicitly. I think that any one of us could be. Yeah, I think any one of us could be taken over. By a virus or programming or whatever. It's just organic versus synthetic. You know what I mean? But I think the soul of Data is always pure, and
I think
that's what we see in Picard actually, like
Data
how he defeats lore.
Yeah, but I think that the fact that Data has so much rigidity scares me more than like once Data was kind of like how he is now, because he's kind of merged in a sense with lore, and it's all one big kind of like And I feel like like the fact that there's more gray makes me trust him more.
Like gray hair? Or just the gray hair?
I guess. Okay, we'll go with that.
What was the question? Oh yeah, I wrote this note down because I thought of you. I have seen Endgame, as you know. I'm watching Star Trek Voyager. It's my only blind spot in Star Trek. I'm not a completionist as one might assume about me. I'm working through Voyager, but I have seen Endgame, and I really like that scene where Janeway's like, I'm looking more and more like my Endgame, the version of myself from Endgame and stuff like that. How did you feel about that?
I appreciated it. I appreciate the callback and like the acknowledgement that happened, because sometimes we can think of like, I guess, timey-wimey episodes as kind of like their own thing, but no, like they met this other Janeway, she came through, she helped them, you know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I appreciate that. And I think that it makes sense. You would think about that. Like if you met yourself, like a future version of yourself. If you
I don't have that badge, but it's that other badge.
Yeah. If you met a future version of yourself and they impact, even if you only met them for like a couple days, and then like 20 years later, I'm pretty sure you would often think about like that person and what they look like, and then sometimes you would look at yourself and be like, I do be looking like them now. You know what I mean? I've aged in the same way. My hair's the same way.
And I guess they were at odds with each other in Endgame, right? Like past Janeway wasn't really like
They didn't
pleased
have
with
the same vision of how the mission should be executed. Let's put it
yeah,
that way.
she wasn't very pleased with her future self, but now she's starting to understand her future self, which is kind of an interesting thing, right? Like it's like, yeah, I liked it. I like that little tie-in. I thought that was a special moment, even though I haven't completed Voyager. I felt like that stood out for sure. Let's talk about Wesley in bondage. Man, Ascencia, she even says at one moment, which really got to me because I was like, oh, Will Wheaton hates that, but she's like, Mr. Crusher, you talk too much.
Shut up, Wesley.
It's basically the shut up Wesley thing. I thought it's great that
so Will Wheaton hates that. Will Wheaton hates the shut up Wesley thing.
I think because that's something that became like a meme at some point.
Oh, so people probably scream it at him at conventions and shit.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like, people are awful.
Yeah, it must get pretty old. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Like you're on stage. Shut up, Wesley. Okay, haha. We're doing a panel. Yeah, no.
But it is nice that it is funny that they acknowledge that, and also that like that's what probably gets Wesley to give her that false vision. He's like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, how'd you feel about Wesley and his predicament in this
So I don't know exactly how it is that he was captured, because my boy's pretty powerful. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he's a full traveler. He learned directly from the traveler. You could tell he has the powers.
Yeah, no. So I'm surprised at how he was captured.
Right? Or did he allow himself to be captured? Because remember, it could be part of.
So you know things that I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like when you're working with.
Am I gonna have to change this timeline?
Let me think about this for a second.
Because right now, as you can see, there's written Prodigy, okay, and it's got a date that begins, and I'm pretty convinced that at the end of the show, I'm just gonna have to put a date that ends. I'm not gonna have to add any lines or any other dots. Am I wrong about that?
I feel like the question needs to be readdressed to say maybe that your timeline should, as far as I know, will never end. It's always going to be updated because Star Trek continues.
Fair.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like any show.
But every December, January, I make an update that is
right. I'm not going to spoil
in the moment
things by telling you if you need to update your timeline.
I need to add 100 more lines. Fair enough. All right.
But you might, just from what we already know, you might need to create a temporary. I don't know. If they're successful, you might need to create. If they are successful, you might need to create a little semi. I don't know what I'm talking about here.
No, because I know what you're talking about, like maybe incursions or that kind of stuff, but we don't put those in this
yeah,
timeline.
So then you may or may
this
not.
This is too simplified a timeline. We're trying to get people into Star Trek, not put them off. Come on.
This show is definitely getting people into Star Trek. I think it's a great introductory show. Oh, my cat finally come.
What did we say that we had to come back to and that we would forget?
Audience, remind us, because I totally
forgot.
I totally forgot. I didn't write it down. I was too busy doing the summary. That's your job. You didn't write.
I didn't write it down. I pretended to write it down, thinking I'll remember it.
I do have more questions for you. Did we talk about the incursor? Oh, maybe it was the weapon, the incursor. Do we have to talk about that?
I don't know. No.
How does it compare to? How do you think the incursor compares to? Let's see. What could we compare it to? Oh, the Thalaron radiation. from Nemesis would be a good comparison, I think. What else was a good comparison? Could you compare it to the Genesis device? Does it has a wave, like a field that it creates?
Somewhat.
It's just the opposite of Genesis, though, where it doesn't create a new matrix, it actually destroys the current matrix. So it's like an anti-Genesis maybe. But yeah, what'd you think of the incursor?
I liked it. I like the concept. I like
it's a cool new weapon.
Yeah,
it's scary. It's
sci-fi
scary
concept. Yeah, and there's something about it. I think it affects morale too, because it's so slow. So you know what I mean? It just sits there and
if they hadn't
slowly
contained
consumes
it,
you. You know what I mean?
Well, if they hadn't contained it, it would have spread throughout the whole ship pretty quickly, I imagine. But then does it stop at some point?
Okay,
I guess
quickly is I mean, it depends. Like I'm comparing this to an explosion. You know what I mean? Like a photon torpedo blows up, boom, you're done. This isn't like that. So even if the spread is relatively quick, you know what I mean, compared to like being blown up, it's very slow.
Right.
But I like it. I like the idea. I like the concept of having this. It's such a horrible thing to devise. Only evil people would devise such a thing. But I do think there can be some very scientific, like valid applications to that, where you could like slow down like the growth of like a plant or whatever it is to see, like in I guess real time the slow motion of it all. And also there's I don't know if you've seen this. I don't know if you've seen it.
It's speeding up the aging of a plant.
Yeah.
So you'd actually have to, you could see the life cycle of a whole plant. Like that maybe like it would be kind of awful to do this, but like maybe a plant that takes like 1,000 years to flower, you could put it in the incursor field and then it would flower in like 10 days or something like that.
Yeah. Like the once every however often it happens, you could do that. You could use that and then it would happen, more often.
But it's definitely, it's interesting because
you've muted yourself. You don't even want to hear yourself anymore.
The mic got unplugged. Do you hear me on good mic or shit mic?
This is shit mic. You've gone subspace.
Back. Hello, how do I...
Oh, there we go. He's back.
Okay. I have to try not to touch the computer too much because something's loose and then the mic disconnects. I don't know. It's like, but I hear actually a good friend of mine is sending me a mic, which I'm very excited about.
Ooh.
So I'm gonna get it soon. Yeah.
This is really weird and really specific. And maybe it's because we talked about hair in the beginning of the episode. But you have a hoodie on. Yeah. And you also have headphones. So between the headphones and the hoodie is like a dark space. And there's also
between the headphones and the hoodie, there's a dark space. You're talking about face?
No. Beneath the headphones.
Oh, right here. This here. Yeah.
And above the hoodie, there's also that water bottle in the back that now and then you can just see like the little that. Now you can just see that. And sometimes if you kind of squint a little, it looks like you got long hair. It looks like there's like a blackness of like your hair flow.
Like a mullet? Like I have a mullet.
Kind of. It's very Florida man.
No, please. Can we not? Pakistani man. Pakistani American.
Florida man.
I guess I
Florida all the way.
Florida. No, it's unfortunate that I've lived here all my life. I like Florida, actually, to be honest. If you ignore some of the bad things, Florida is really beautiful. The Everglades is a unique feature, unlike anything in the world.
Well, I imagine you in your free time, with no shirt on, holding like, I don't know, like a big ass gun, an American flag and sitting on an alligator or something. You know what I mean?
Not all Florida men are cringe. The ones you don't hear about on the news. There's more. There's
That's
more.
as soon as that's not Miami. That's as soon as you leave Miami, everyone's like that. But in Miami, they're a bit different. Yeah, fair enough.
No, but in all seriousness, yeah, Florida. Every state's got some issues. Like Texas. Let's refocus on Texas for a moment, because I feel like Texas, man.
You think Texas man is more cringe than Florida man?
I think they're like at least of equal cringe in different ways.
I think every state has their own man, and every state has their own quirks. You know what I mean? There's pros and cons, baby.
Did anyone in the audience remember
the ships, the 3 little ships?
Oh yeah, I
I
had
think
a note
they're
about
really
that. Yeah,
cool,
Tom
but
Paris designed.
They're also very close to La Serena in like color and
You just made me
design.
like them a lot better. I hadn't caught that they were
And so
that
there's
way.
I feel like this connective tissue in the in like the design philosophy.
I wonder if Tom Paris later goes on to work for the Kaplan group, which created the La Serena design.
Maybe.
It's a Kaplan Industries, whatever they are, whoever they are. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I feel like they're close to La Serena in terms of design.
Benji will have a man off with Father and Canadian man is nicer. I don't know. I've been seeing some weird stuff from Canadian man now too. I feel like
well, it depends. Some Canadian men are just Canadian men, but some of them they try to be American men a bit too much, I feel like.
Oh yeah, then they're
you know what I mean?
yeah, you're right. I see what you're saying. But what about what you defy man?
I defy man.
You're like New Zealand, French, Canadian man.
I'm undefined.
Undefined man. World man. You can be world man.
World man. Oh, I like that.
Oh man.
Oh man. I don't know if that's the same thing.
We've gotten way off the rails here with this.
Absolutely. Get back on the rails.
So I guess let's see. You were talking about the ship. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I also liked seeing Voyager and Protostar in action. That was cool. It's just like as opposed to like the huge battle from last season. This was like a really good. Do you think we'll get more battles? By the way, are you hoping for more battles?
I'm not hoping for more battles. Do I think we will? Probably,
because we have quite a bit left on the season still. Not quite
really.
a bit, but
there's
like episodes.
Technically 4 episodes, but one is like a 2-parter. So technically, there's only like 3 adventures, I guess, to end this thing. Yeah, I appreciate seeing scale, because this show does a lot like visually to show us the scale of things. So you get like the Protostar next to the Voyager, and you can see how really small the Protostar is compared to the Voyager, or how massive they've made this new Voyager. I don't really know. And then you see like the little fighter, the little ships.
There's
how
a lot
small they are, and then you see like the huge enemy vessel that shows up, and it's like, wow, why would you ever build something that big?
Oh, the entrance of it reminded me of Kelvin, the incursion of the Narada when it first comes through.
Yeah,
that thing.
Yes, I got mad Narada vibes. I think that the battle that stands out the most to me outside of Deep Space Nine is Nemesis. It's like the ramming of the ships.
The great battle.
Nemesis I think the like when they look at each other and it's like, full speed ahead.
But even before that, all the maneuvers and like the dorsal, like all that stuff, and like doing a full phaser spread to like reveal its location, and then the Romulans show up.
But I do feel like that's kind of a Wrath of Khan like inspired kind of like one up. You know what I mean? It's like we're gonna do Wrath of Khan again, like but then the whole ramming of the vessel is really like a fight.
Where it takes it takes it to a new level. Yeah, plenty of letters in the alphabet. Toddy, I know that that child on the tube is not watching the show. Maybe she's still too young, right? Is that what we decided? I forget.
Maybe it's that. Okay. Maybe it's that. She has very eclectic taste. Like she'll watch the most random ass things. You know what I mean? Sometimes she's into things, sometimes she's not. So I don't know.
But what would you think? How do you think that this, because this is a pretty heavy episode, do you think it still has the balance of like, you know, appealing to a younger audience that might not, you know, be able to kind of that might not get all the nuances, and an older audience? You think the episode still tackles that balance well?
I think it can. Yeah, I think it does. I do think my opinion has somewhat changed over like time. I don't think that Prodigy is so much for younger audiences as it is for new audiences of
I
Star
like
Trek.
that reframing. I think that's how I feel too. I mean, I
So,
often
you know,
get, you know, trapped in the, like, I guess the initial marketing of it kind of like stuck in my head. So I'm always saying, "Oh, Prodigy, a kids show or younger audiences." But you're right, it's for newer audiences of
yeah,
Star Trek for sure.
it's
It's a great entry
you're
point.
young in your adventure of Star Trek. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? In your
Yeah, yeah.
journey.
And you know
Um,
what's cool is like, I like that, you know, in much in a similar way that in Star Trek Picard, you know, Picard's kind of like mentoring a younger generation of people with Rafi, Rios, Elnor, you know, all this kind of motley crew, if you will. I like the Janeway version of it a lot. Like here we really see, I think in this episode especially, I feel like we really see that come together with the cohesion that the um more experienced crew and the less experienced crew have, and like they come
yeah.
together and like they do a really good job. And I think that's one of the best strengths about this episode, is showing how that all these things have kind of brought them to this point where they succeed,
So
basically.
So yes, I second that. I very much enjoy, and I've always talked about like the juxtaposition of like the goofiness of the lower decks characters with the seriousness of like the bridge crew, and how that works so much. And this is the same thing. You get like the inexperienced kids that we follow, um juxtaposed with like the very kind of like straight bridge crew, and I think that works really well. I agree with Jill. I think in the second season, especially the second half, we're getting more into adult territory. But I'll equate this to, now bear with me, Harry Potter. Not the films, but the books. So I never read them because I don't care. But from what I've understood over the years, is Harry Potter came out and the books progressively got more and more kind of like adult oriented because the audience was growing up with the books. And Prodigy season 1 came out in like 2021. It was TV7, so it was for people that were like 7. Prodigy season 2 comes out in 2024, which is 3 years later. Those kids that were 7 are now 10, so they've
No,
grown up.
yeah, good point. Yeah, so
And
it's
so if we were to get a new season of this, maybe in 2 or 3 years, they would then be 13. So you can really tackle more and more subjects.
Plus the kids are getting older too, so you have to kind of age
Yes,
the
yes.
stories to level up the stories in a sense.
So I do feel like like if we were looking at season 1 as very kid oriented, it makes sense that the show in season 2 would no longer be as kid oriented. Those kids have grown up.
Yeah. Well, Star Trek is best, I think, when it's all ages. You know, and
I
I
do
think
think
that's
most Star Trek is all ages. Like
yeah.
it's very cherry picking because like you could say TNG is all ages. Some of them might be a little too like sexual tension. And then some of them might be, you know, there are full lights. Like you wouldn't, I don't think that's necessarily something that you would throw it at like a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean, but
But
I
then
guess like yeah, all ages
in a
meaning
light,
like
I think is something
yeah.
that can work for like everyone. You know what I mean?
Right. I think, you know, something that I remember, I mean, I was old enough. I was like 11, so I was pretty old when TNG started, but I feel like it did a similar thing where the story, as I got older, I remember the stories making more sense in a complex way or whatever. But I do think the cleverness of a show like Star Trek Prodigy or TNG or whatever is that there's enough stuff to appeal to that. Like you might not catch the nuance of like Deanna Troy getting raped necessarily, you know, like or whatever, like violated as an 11-year
Oh
old
my.
in the same way that you do when you're older, where you realize, oh yeah, she's definitely, that's what's happening here. You know what I mean? As an 11-year-old, you're thinking of more probably like possession or like things like you're focused more on that. So I do think that like concepts age as we age, as like concepts change as we age as well.
Yes.
So yeah, very.
I think so. To I don't know if anyone's gone out to see The Wild Robot, the animated movie.
No, I'm dying to see it though. I hear really good things about it. Yeah.
Go and watch it.
Okay.
Is it the best DreamWorks film they've ever made? I don't think so. Is it the best DreamWorks film they've made in God knows how long? Yes.
Okay, cool.
No, like the Wild Robot is honestly, it's breathtaking. Like visually, but it's also it's I don't like the story is fantastic, but it's exactly what you're saying here. Like it'll work for you as a kid, but when you revisit it later, there's a lot of different levels to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that especially like because there's a lot going on with like motherhood or just parenthood in general.
Parenthood in general.
So I do think that if someone watches this as a kid and it becomes like one of their favorite films as a kid, and as they grow up and eventually like if they do become a parent and they watch this again with their own child, I think it'll have some like profound effect on them.
Very cool. I'll check it out. I kind of don't go to the movies often. It's so expensive, but I'll do it for this
it's gotten
one.
pretty crazy. No, but I think The Wild Robot is really like to support, like, because animation, I love animation and I love animated films, and when we can go out and do our best to support like one of the best animated features, I think it's a good thing.
Well, Toddy, we've been talking for a little over an hour, and like we like to keep these episodes to a nice, neat hour-ish time frame. Final thoughts, final questions for this episode. Give your ratings, and I'm going to give the two episodes back to back a 10, a solid 10. I think it's a really strong episode, especially after this discussion. I feel like I appreciate even more. Gesundheit, bless you. So yeah, what about you?
I like this.
I forget. Do we rate the two-parters as one, or do you?
I don't know.
One
do we do that? Or do
I
we
forget
how
you do it. I forget.
Oh,
you have a separate thing with your.
Let me go.
Your database.
Let me go check what I'm doing here. I gotta know what I'm doing.
Audience, tell us what you thought. Final thoughts, final questions, and ratings for this episode.
No, I rate them. I rate them
separately.
As one.
Oh, you do. Okay, so yeah,
it is. They are as one. Oh my god, this season is just insane. Like the ratings have given, that's incredible.
Like a good insane, like
high rating. No, high rating. This is maybe one of my least favorite episodes, but like not in a bad way, just that it didn't stand out to me as much as the rest. So maybe like a good old regular, like, but there's good. 6.5 is harsh, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I'll have to raise my rating to bring the average up.
Okay,
if you're gonna give it
a 6.5. I'll give it a flat 7 then. I'll give it a 7. How about that? 7 is good. Don't get cranky.
I'm gonna do an Admiral's override on.
No, I think 7 is fair, but I really do think it's just because I'm not the biggest fan of like the whole, we're gonna take a moment to do like a battle, but the build up towards it throughout the season made sense, and there's so many like good little moments that I feel are really good. There are good moments that I feel are really good. No,
there are a lot of little moments.
There are a lot of little moments that
moments.
Yeah, that are just moments. I did want to say one thing about Dahl, because we were talking about Dahl earlier. We haven't explored his past enough, and we haven't explored who he is enough. That's the only thing that really bugs me, because...
You mean like who designed him? Wasn't it Asung? Not Asung, like a student. Don't we know that he...
I want to know more about Dahl. I want to explore and understand more about like where he comes from, why he is the way he is. And I think that would really help us kind of like connect more. Because you were saying that some people maybe don't connect too much with him, and in a way his arrogance or his annoyance kind of comes through as like the main character trait. And I think it's because we haven't taken the time to really sit down and
But what I don't know what more we need to know about Dahl, because we know that he was created as a chimera being by one of Sung's, if I'm not mistaken, proteges or something like that. I don't know if they name who it is, but then shortly after that, he somehow is lost from those people. I forget if they mention on the show, and he ends up with, I guess, yeah, it'd be nice to have like a short track.
Why did they make him? Were there others? Are there more like Dahl?
But Dal doesn't seem to be interested in, like, I feel like he got the answers he needed, because he's not like really on that.
I don't care what he wants. I want the answers.
Star Trek Prodigy comic books, season 3, The Search for Dal.
No, but I feel like it would help us connect a bit more.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't
need more judge me.
I don't need. Yeah, I agree. Hey, you do you, but I'm just saying personally, I don't.
I agree with me. How about that?
It's true.
Well, fun little character moments in this episode. That's what really brings me, and that's what I remember from it.
Well, Toddy, nothing stays the same forever. Which. But we hope Star Trek Prodigy lasts forever, or at least gets another season to tell more stories. Remember, audience, that Toddy has not been watching these. He's watching them in, like, as we discussed. So next you're gonna watch Brink. And yep, and then I forget if we confirmed. Let's just do it on air so that for audience transparency. Next week, let's see here. Yeah, next week, the 18th, right? Should we go Friday again? Back to Fridays?
We can, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So unless something crazy happens, like another hurricane, we're back on the 18th at 5 p.m. for those.
That's enough. You've had enough.
It's enough. Yeah, it is enough. So we're back.
Tell the hurricane people to like settle down a bit. You know what I mean?
And we'll be talking about the episode Brink, which you could probably guess what might be happening, because they are on their way to Solum. So that's pretty cool. Got anything to promote or talk about before we sign off?
No, nothing.
All right. Well, thank you to
nothing.
Thank you to all the folks that have been watching. It was a really fun, lively chat. We would love it if you would subscribe if you're not already subscribed to our channel on YouTube. Thank you to Lama Drew, who was watching on X. I really appreciate it. That's pretty cool. We have audience, because I streamed these at the same time on Facebook, X, and here, so that was really nice.
Goodness.
Yep. Yep. We're all over
we're all over the place.
So we're all over the place. So live long and prosper, and we will see y'all next time.